Hey everyone, and welcome to the December edition of 3030. I am your host, Pat Reinhardt from Conductor. And as always, thank you so much for spending 30 minutes of your valuable time with me. It's the last one of the year, everyone. We made it. 2024 is pretty much in the books. And, a lot happened over the course of the year. So let's see what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through what I'm seeing and hearing from the November 2024 core algorithm update now that it has finally finished. I know I went through this last time, but it rolled out, took 23 days to roll out, which is odd. So we're going to go and see where everything kind of landed. We're going to talk briefly through Google's site reputation abuse spam policy and the updates on this ongoing saga. I'm sure a lot of you have been following this. It's pretty wild. What's going on. So I'm going to show a couple of things there and just show you what we're seeing in our data. And then, as always, since it is December, we are going to recap 2024. We're going to see how I did on my predictions last year. Did they come true? Was I completely off base? And then to wrap it all up, we're going to do predictions for 2025. So let's jump into it because we only have 30 minutes. Now, before we get into anything, everybody, there is another core algorithm update rolling out at the moment. So we have the December 2024 core algorithm update that is rolling out. This happened this morning, which is why we have this very blank slide because we don't know anything about it. But this tweet from Google Search Central gave us a little bit of insight. If you're wondering why there's a core update this month after one last month, we have different core systems. We're always improving. This past blog post explains more, et cetera, et cetera. So everybody, we went from one core algorithm update to another core algorithm update. Now, why does this feel familiar? This feels familiar because this happened last October and November. There was a core update last October, and then right when it finished, they started rolling out a November core update. So again, a couple of years ago, I had said that Google is going to, start to roll out these updates, in quicker succession. That has come true, and we are seeing another one. So November was a very volatile month, as it has been, for the last couple of years, really. And December is looking like it is going to be volatile as well. So let's all hang on to our hats, everybody, right, and see where this one takes us. But let's talk about something that has actually completed and that we can look at. So the November 2024 core update finally finished rolling out. Started, on December 5th. Took 23 days, started on November 11th, took 23 days to roll out, which again is odd. Typically, updates, core updates like this roll out within 10 to 14 days, and then they're done, right? This one was a little odd because we saw a different type of volatility throughout the rollout. Now, as you can see, pretty much right when it started to roll out, over to when it ended, it wasn't as intense of a rollout as many other updates have been, right? You can see here that when it rolled out, it was hot at first, and then it went down a little bit. Then around the 17th, it was up again, and then it started this kind of started petering down, and then it wasn't really doing anything, and then it peaked again, right around Thanksgiving. And then it was down again, through the beginning of December. Then it peaked again right at the end. Now, why do I mention the end, right? Because this is a pattern. If you've joined the show over the last couple of years, this is a pattern that we have been tracking, that Google went from having sustained volatility throughout these updates to having, seeing volatility, throughout it, and then it kind of starting to taper off. And then right at the end, usually within a day or two of it ending, or literally on the last day of the update when they say it's complete, Google hits some kind of button and shoots out a tremor into the algorithm, which is exactly what we're seeing here. You can see that like right towards the end of this, like on the 4th, it was on its way up. But on the 5th, when it did end, you can see that was pretty much its highest point between the 4th and the 5th. So again, this pattern holds true once again, right? So that is something that we have to take into account. A lot of different things here. So what I was seeing across our data with the sites that I track, just for anyone who's new to the program, I track hundreds of sites, just to see, a little bit more closely than the overall database. just to kind of dig in a little bit more. And what I saw was most aggregator or / content hub sites. These are sites like Credit Karma, WebMD, and things like that, still having a hard time. Interesting thing on WebMD that we'll get to, which is not doing as well as I thought it was going to be. Definitely seeing some surges in smaller sites in the B2B HR space. Retail was relatively flat, either being up or down 2%. So nothing major, which is interesting because retail has been one of the most volatile and messiest, verticals over the course of the last year. And it looks like Reddit has plateaued for now, right? So over the last 3 months, Reddit has pretty much been standing still. But of course, we will see that. To answer a question here, a content hub site or aggregator site, that's a site that, it's like comparison sites, right? Like the whole point of the site is, like, take Credit Karma, for example, right? They write a lot of great content about finance. They do credit card comparisons and things of that nature. But ultimately, the goal of their site is to get you to, compare a credit card, go sign for a credit card, and it's a big affiliate play. So like content hubs mean just like they're like the main part of their SEO campaigns are just them creating content. And again, I've been referring to them as aggregator sites, over the course of the last year or so. But that's what I mean. That's what I mean by that. So let's get into some of our data, right? So ADP, starting off some B2B sites, HR, that arena. ADP was flat for the most part. Page one visibility, as you can see here, they're still down a little bit, from a year ago, but ultimately, like, this site has largely maintained where they were even through all the volatility. So ADP is in good shape. Again, pretty much flat. Paychex, saw a 4% increase during this update. And this site's interesting because their increase total is 41% since the August update. So they actually started, they actually caught a wave in August that they've been riding. And it's really, it's really interesting to see this. And again, like throughout, I did a little bit more on B2B last month, but B2B has been kind of a mixed bag. Largely, it looked like everything, like if you averaged everything out, like their sites were down about 10%. But again, when you compare that to other sites like some of these aggregator sites in financial, retail that are down like 60, 70%, it's really not, it's more of a normal kind of, ebb and flow of the algorithm through one of these updates. Rippling is a really interesting kind of surge, right? They saw an 11% increase, during this update. This brought their total increase since the August update to 211% for page one visibility. Again, it's a smaller site, but that's kind of the trend that I've been seeing, is that smaller sites are definitely getting more visibility than larger sites. Like ADP is a huge company, like Paychex, bigger company, but Rippling, it's a smaller company in the HR, kind of software space, and huge surge over the last 5 months, which is really, it's interesting to see like this. And high five to their, if they have an SEO team, give me a call. I got a product for you. But at the end of the day, like really, really great stuff here for this site. And one of the first real kind of hockey stick surges I have seen from one of these updates over the course of the last year. This is really one of the first, kind of like hockey stick, gains here. Let's look at QuickBooks, another huge company. They remained flat through this update, but over the last 12 months, they've seen a 16% decrease in page one visibility. So again, this kind of leans into, what I'm seeing is that larger, like smaller companies are getting a fair shake here, when it comes to page one visibility, which is really interesting. And again, maybe the playing field's evening a little bit, but again, when you look at Rippling, that's, like ranking for 15,000 keywords. You see QuickBooks, which is ranking still for over 100,000 keywords. Again, different size companies, but again, you're starting to see that gap close a little bit. And again, smaller companies seem to be getting a little bit more of the benefit here. Wetsuit Warehouse, my bellwether, I show this every month, saw a 2% increase in page one visibility. They've had a little bit of a rough go since the August update, but which they've largely been flat for, but really, the November update didn't really do anything. They were, again, like 2% increase. That's great, not anything. But again, interesting part about this site is that their traffic really hasn't suffered. So again, it's not, we all have to remember that just straight up visibility and rankings doesn't necessarily equate to a ton of traffic. You have to rank for the right things. So again, but it is interesting to see the different players, because this is a smaller site that actually hasn't benefited from it, but that's one of the few ones that I've actually seen. Walmart saw a 2% increase. Again, retail, whether it's big box or whether it's small, about a 2% increase. It's been a crazy volatile year. But if you look at Walmart over time, they've actually been slowly decreasing, over the course of the last year. So again, smaller companies may be getting a fair shake, or it could just be how messy retail SERPs are these days. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at just pure visibility for this update, about 2% increase one way or the other. Same goes for Urban Outfitters. 2% decrease in page one visibility here through the update. So again, they've been on they have a little bit of a bell curve going here, where they're pretty much where they were a year ago. Maybe a little higher than where they were a year ago still, but this update, again, 2% decrease there. So a little bit of a mixed bag for retail, but largely no major swings. Like, again, the major swings I saw were largely in the HR payroll, kind of area, B2B area, which was interesting to see. Have to show Credit Karma, 3% increase through this update, which again, I hope is the start of a great comeback story. This site has been decimated over time. So keep that, and again, this comes back to the intent of the keyword and what Google is trying to show. For anyone who's just joining, one of my theories here is that Google wants to show the actual financial institution, like if you're comparing credit cards, because Google compares credit cards right in the SERP anyway. And just as an example, one thing that Credit Karma does, right? Like comparing credit cards, more often than not now, if you Google hey, I want to compare credit cards, you'll actually see the financial institution and not Bankrate, Credit Karma, or NerdWallet or things like that. So again, these types of sites are having a tough time. When you look at NerdWallet, another 2% decrease. And again, over the course of the last year, major losses here. Not as bad as Credit Karma. Credit Karma is really, they have a road ahead of them. But at the end of the day, that's kind of, you're starting to see these big aggregator content hub type sites not getting as much love from Google after all the updates this year. One of the biggest surprises for me is WebMD. So month to month, they have been losing visibility since July. So the August update was not good to them. At that time, I said, it's probably just a little bit of a bump in the road. They'll pop back up. This month, through this update, another 4% decrease, and that equates to an 18% page one visibility loss since July. Now, again, when you think of the amount of keywords that is hundreds of thousands of keywords that they are no longer on page one for. And again, I think a lot of this has to do with Google getting better at the intent of people who are looking for medical type things. Like if you're searching for symptoms or you're searching for information, WebMD is going to show up every time. If you're searching for treatment, let's say treatment for the flu, right now when I search, I see more, hospitals, doctor's offices, places you can actually get treatment. Whereas, WebMD would have showed up every time. And it's not that they don't show up at all. It's just they're showing up less for those types of terms. So keep that in mind, right? That's what we're seeing in the data here. And this is probably the most surprising story over the last several months for me, over the last 6 months, really, is that WebMD, you would think that they would, they would continue to dominate, because Google kind of said they would. They said highly authoritative sites, especially in the healthcare. So you would think WebMD and Healthline here would be dominating. Healthline saw another 1% decrease, and again since July, a 13% decrease. So so same exact curve as WebMD, just that kind of steady down and to the right, which is obviously not what they want to see. But these aggregator content hub sites, whatever you want to call them, this is really, so it's really interesting. So just keep that, keep that in mind. But again, it's been a messy year overall. Of course, the biggest story of this year is Reddit. Reddit, plateaued over the last 4 months. 1% increase during this update, only a 2% increase since September. People would say, well, that's still 2%. Totally. It's still a lot of keywords, but it's also not these chunky gains that they've been getting. Like the August update, I think they raised another 20% or something or something crazy like that. I can't remember. But it looks like over the last 4 months, really since September, Reddit has plateaued. And again, like this is one of those things that's going to play into people's strategies next year. Like what is going to what is everyone going to be dabbling in? We'll get to that later. But again, it looks like Reddit's meteoric rise has halted for the moment. But again, that could change next year, right? Like that could change next month. Excuse me. We could, which I guess technically is next year. We'll have to see what happens. But it looks like over the last 4 months, Reddit is going to, and again, this very much feels like when Google got access to the Twitter fire hose and you saw a Twitter carousel for everything that you Googled. This feels eerily similar to that. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see Reddit's visibility shrink a little bit. But again, it's still going to be a behemoth. And honestly, I'm probably wrong. And we'll probably see it shoot up another 10% next month anyway. Anyway, that's what we're seeing in our data for the update. Let's talk about some updates around the site reputation abuse spam policy. So Glenn Gabe, if you don't follow him, go follow him today. Very smart, always does great downloads. And, I follow him and a bunch of other folks around the industry as we all chat. But when you look at it here, what's been going on has been really crazy. So over the last 2.5 weeks, for anyone who didn't, who wasn't here last time, Google had started to send out manual actions to sites like Forbes Advisor, Wall Street Journal Buy Side, and CNN Underscored, saying that their third-party content, basically their affiliate content, which is those parts of those sites are all product reviews and pay to play, all those types of things. It's a big business for those sites, big business in general that Google just kind of stuck a knife in the back of. But what really happened like over the last 2.5 weeks is that Google updated its policy. So last time, we didn't really have an answer as to why they just started sending out manual actions. And honestly, it happened right on top of the last 30/30 episode. And I was flying back from Brighton SEO, so I didn't have time to dig into it as much as I did over the last few weeks. But what happened was Google updated the policy saying that first-party involvement doesn't matter anymore. So if everyone remembers, is that if you were a third-party affiliate and you were in contact with the site, you didn't hack the site, and it was a legitimate kind of business transaction, that content was fine. That changed. So now any third-party content that Google believes is exploiting the main site's ranking signals is now in violation of this policy. To combat all of the questions that, of course, came, Google added an FAQ about how to handle all this, which you can review after you get the deck. We'll send it out after the live show, and you can click there. And when you look at it, these sites are these parts of these sites, they're gone. They're gone. Most of them have actually put no index tags on them now. And one thing to remember here is that this is not being enforced algorithmically, which eventually it will be, right? Like eventually it won't be manual actions. It will just happen. But right now it's only enforced through manual actions, which is why you're seeing some sites being treated one way and some sites being treated another. But again, that will change at one point. Glenn did a whole breakdown. If you want to look, read this whole thing, you can read it on the, he did a whole, kind of thread of tweets. But when you look at these sites, Forbes Advisor is down 80%. It's gone. CNN Underscored, 80% down, gone. Wall Street Journal Buy Side, 88% gone. And Fortune Recommends, 91% gone. So these sites and this type of business is gone. But and this is not necessarily surprising. And there's an argument. I've had, good debates with folks about, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Was this really valuable content? I mean, at the end of the day, what it really is that this was a business and people relied on it. And Google probably should have given more time than not even 24 hours before they started sending out manual actions after changing the policy. But that's what it is, right? Like this content is, people pay for this content to have this content on the site. But I feel bad for the folks that, this is part of their, how they make a living, right? Like this is an overnight change. This is a business that has closed overnight. And again, all these sites, you can see that they're all starting to no index this content. The content's still there, but they're no indexing it. And again, this will change the landscape of affiliate marketing a little bit, right? Because these were big businesses that a lot of companies relied on, honestly. But again, there's a lot, there's good and bad to this, right? Like, because it gets rid of a lot of crappy content that's in the index and gives other, commerce sites and, other folks selling product maybe a little bit more of a fair shake since they're not attached to Forbes. But at the same time, there were people running these parts of these sites, and there's people's jobs who depended on it, I'm sure. So that's the downside. There's good and bad to everything, I suppose. But that's what's there. So moving on from there, let's talk about 2024. Right, we've got 10 minutes left. And we're going to talk about right now, like, here's the chart over the course. Here's the volatility basically over the course of the year, right? You can see there were a ton of experiments over the year. We had a bunch of algorithm updates. This was now that we have the December 2024 core algorithm update. I believe that is the 5th core algorithm update or the 4th core algorithm update. We had AI overviews launch on May 15th. And you can see through the year, it was a volatile year, right? It really, outside of April and the beginning of May and a little bit of January, like most months were pretty volatile, and there was a lot of ups and downs, and we survived a lot, right? Right now, the landscape, the couple of things that I take away, the retail landscape is completely changed. Affiliate landscape is completely changed, with what we just talked about. Like, people are still trying to figure out what helpful content exactly is. And I think that a lot of us are at a new normal when it comes to our traffic levels and the visibility of our sites. And when you think about all of that, it wasn't like there was a lot that happened, but it wasn't as much as last year, right? Like, last year had, I think, 3 or 4 additional updates, like named updates. And really why that is that Google is rolling these named updates into core updates much quicker, right? Like, so we had the reviews updates last year. We had spam updates last year. We had the helpful content updates last year. All of those are now rolled. Or most of those are now rolled into the core algorithm updates outside of certain spam updates. So that's, like, something to remember is that, like, what we're going to have eventually is just core updates. Like, we're not going to have the penguins and the pandas and all that and whatever, we're just going to have the core updates, like spam updates. Eventually, all of this will be algorithmic, and we'll just have, 4 or 5 core algorithm updates a year, which will probably happen quarterly, which is basically what happened this year. It was around, like every 3 or 4 months or so, Google decided to roll one of these out. But again, still brings a lot of pain to a lot of different businesses. And this year was a volatile one. So if you're up this year, give yourself a high five. You did a great job. You won this year. On to next year. If you're down this year, don't feel bad about it. And again, just remember that the best thing that you can do is just move forward. The worst thing that any SEO campaign can suffer is the folks running it, continuously digging around rabbit holes for silver bullets about what happened. Whatever happened, you just got to move forward. That's where we are. That's where we're at today. Google has said as much, that wherever we're at, there's no recoveries coming from the helpful content update. This affiliate thing from the site abuse policy, that is not going to be reversed. So I feel good about next year. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to that we're going to learn, especially with LLMs and things like that. So with that, let's talk about some predictions, right? Our last 5 minutes here. So this is a tradition here on 3030, where I test my might, my wisdom, say, hey, like, what do I think is going to happen last year? What you're looking at here is these were my predictions for last year, right? Number 1 was specificity will become increasingly important. Number 2 is that you will need to establish entities within your organization. Number 3, AIOs, everyone was referring to AI overviews as SGE at the time, will launch and wreak havoc on rankings and CTR. And we will talk more about real estate versus rankings. So the concept of rankings will change. So how do we think I did? So specificity. Definitely. I was definitely right about this. When you look at AI overviews, passage-based ranking is used, way more than it used to be. You click on one of those links, it highlights the more specific, the better. Those are the sites that are getting highlighted, and I think this will continue to only become more important. Next was about SGE, or what we're calling now AI overviews. I know SGE is like the suite of things, but really, like, we're all talking about AI overviews here. So AI overviews did launch. It totally launched, but it did not have as big of an impact as I thought it would. So I was right about the launch. I think I was dead wrong about how much it was going to be showing at this point. Right now, Conductor is showing it only about 5% of the time across our keyword database. And so, I thought we'd be in the 20s, by now, on our way to 30%, but it's still not showing enough to really have a humongous impact. So I think we're still waiting on this. So I think I was right about the launch. We knew that, I knew that was going to launch. But I didn't, I thought it was going to have a bigger impact on rankings and click-through rate. I don't think that we're really there yet where we can say that, but that's certainly coming. So I could probably make that prediction for this year, but that would be cheating. Establish entities within your organization. I was definitely right about this. Authorship has made a huge comeback. Authorship is one of the most important things that you can do on your site. And I was definitely right about this. And I see more and more sites doing this. More and more, I've seen more hockey stick, growth charts this year because of people adding authorship pages than in any other year that I've been working in SEO, which is about 22 years. And then we will talk more about real estate versus rankings. So the concept of rankings will change. You'll start to hear people actually talk about it differently. That is definitely true. I talk to hundreds of customers every year, and I can tell you that one of the biggest things that everyone's talking about is what to do outside of their .com, right? It's not just worrying about a set of rankings, but worrying about their overall real estate that they are taking up. So I think I did okay. But that's not so 2024, I'm going to give myself a high five. Good job, Pat. I think you did an okay job. I was totally wrong about the impact on rankings that AI overviews would have, but I think I was pretty right on the other things. So going into 2025, everybody, what do I think is going to happen? What do I think we're going to be seeing? So number one, everyone will be experimenting with forums and user-generated content. I can already see it happen. People are talking about. I get asked what I should do about Reddit every single week. I get multiple times. I have multiple conversations about it. But I think user-generated content in general. I think you're going to see a lot of customers build communities. I think you're going to see a lot of customers reinvigorate existing communities and reestablish existing communities. I think you're going to see more. I think you're going to see more investment in forums and support forums and things like that. And I think you're going to see jobs opening about this, people to actually manage Reddit visibility and things like that. It's too in our face to ignore. And I can tell you, I've already been hearing a lot of customers asking about this. And everybody, your 2025 strategy should include this, right? It should include something with Reddit, Quora, other forums, communities, things of that nature. This is where everything's going. And so we just have to be ready. So number two, LLMs will dominate talk tracks, but not traffic. I'm calling it, and I might be dead wrong about this. But everyone's talking about SearchGPT, ChatGPT, Perplexity.ai, all these other LLMs where, that's going to be the death of Google. Now, I will admit that this is the first time in my 22-year career that I believe within 5 years, Google will not own 90% of the search market share. But I think next year is going to be a learning year. I think we're going to do a lot of experimenting. We're going to do a lot of learning with Perplexity and ChatGPT and others, in other areas like this. But I do not believe we will reach the wide adoption that a lot of other people believe we will in the next 12 months. Again, I think everyone's going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it, but I do not think we will see the traffic that people think that we are going to. I might be wrong. This is probably the one that I'm like 60-40 that I'm going to be right here. But that's what I think is going to happen. Next, AIOs will get bigger, more elaborate, and will be chock full of ads. I'm just waiting for this, right? I'm waiting for them to get ugly. I'm waiting for them to get unruly. And I think we all need to prepare for this, is that AIOs are going to get bigger. They're going to take up more of the screen. People are going to use them more, and we will start to see a lot of our traffic go that way. So we have to, and it's going to be hard to track that because Google has stated that we are not getting anything in Search Console to actually tell us what's happening. But with that, I think that's going to happen. And last but not least, I believe that we will continue to see consolidation in this industry. I think you will see companies buying companies. You will see point solutions being, kind of absorbed into larger companies. You're already seeing it. BrightEdge bought OnCrawl. We bought Content King and Searchmetrics. SEMrush buys a company every 2 months. Who knows who's next. But I believe that you will start to see technologies consolidate. You will see companies consolidate in this space. And I think you're going to see a boom in the industry as more and more executives get locked into this and understanding what the implications of AIOs and LLMs and all these things are on their websites and on their web presence. I think this role continues to get more important. I will always believe that as these changes happen. And I think we all just have to, strap in and get ready for next year. But with that, everybody, we talked a lot about algorithms today. But remember, the only algorithm that matters is the heart, mind, and soul of your customer. If you create great content that they like and love, they will come back and be customers for life. Everybody, we do office hours live every Tuesday after the live show. Come next week. I know a lot of people are probably going to be, heading out for the holidays, but if you're around, come huck questions at me. Sometimes we have 5 people, sometimes we have 50 people. Doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to talk to everybody. And with that, everybody, have the happiest of holidays. Thank you all so much for spending 30 minutes of your valuable time with me. I know I say this every month, but this is my favorite part of my job. I would not be able to do it without you. I hope everybody brunches all the brunches and spends an amazing time with friends and family, however you celebrate, whatever you celebrate. Have a great one, everybody, and we will see you next month.